Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Inna alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We've been speaking about different Sunnah prayers. Again, don't differentiate the Sunnah prayers with the Sunnah rakats that are associated to an obligatory prayer. We talked about the Sunnah prayers such as the Duha prayer. We talked about Tasbih, or the prayer of need. We talked about istiqara prayer. Well, today I'm going to answer a question that many Muslims ask about. And this is not really a prayer as much as a bowing. A prostration. Whenever we talk about the Sunnah prayers, this question always comes up. What about prostrating during reciting the Quran? This is not a prayer, really, guys. But it's a question that many ask that I want to elaborate on today. We're going to talk about prostrating during Quran recitation. Prostrating during Quran recitation. First of all, the Arabic word you hear is doing prostrations of sujood. You guys hear people say, oh, the prostration of sujood. Okay, when you hear the Quran, whenever you hear a verse in the Quran recited, you should prostrate. Well, what is the prostration of recital and how is it performed? Well, whenever you read or hear a verse from the Quran that is a verse of prostration, it is preferred for you to pronounce takbir, which is Allahu Akbar, and then prostrate to the ground like this man is doing in this picture. And then say Allahu Akbar and stand up from the prostration. This is called the prostration of recital. And I'm sure all of you have heard of it. The prostration of recital. Again, it occurs when you hear a verse of prostration from the Quran being recited, or if you are reading the Quran and you come upon a verse of prostration, then you simply raise your hands and say Allahu Akbar and prostrate to the ground like this man is doing, and then Allahu Akbar and come back up. There is no tashahud. There is no taslim or anything else. You're not saying, the tashahud. You're not giving salams. You're just going to prostrate and come back up. And that's based on what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would do upon coming upon one of those verses. We have the hadith of Ibn Umar. He said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite the Quran to us, and when he came to a verse of prostration, he would make the takbir by saying Allahu Akbar, and then he would prostrate, and we would prostrate with him. And as you can see, there's nothing else said during the prostration. No tashahud, nothing else, just Allahu Akbar, prostrate, and then Allahu Akbar and get back up. And then we have that other hadith from Ibn Masud. Ibn Masud said, if you read a verse of prostration, then make the takbir and prostrate. And when you raise your head, make the takbir. That's it. So that's the prostration of recital. But now, what are the virtues? What's the virtue of doing this? Well, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if the son of Adam recites a verse of prostration from the Quran and prostrates, your jinn will leave you and say, oh, whoa, he was ordered to prostrate and he did. So for him it's paradise. And I was ordered to prostrate and I disobeyed. So for me is the hell. Now, when I say leave you, it doesn't mean he's going to leave your body. Your jinn is going to stay with you until you die. But he will leave you alone for that moment. He gets angry. Your personal jinn becomes angry every time you prostrate. Because this is what caused Shaitan to be cursed. Shaitan was commanded to prostrate by Allah and he refused. And the jinn are the offspring of Shaitan. Your jinn is condemned to the hellfire with his leader, Shaitan. Your jinn is an ally of Shaitan. He is not a good Muslim. He's not a Muslim at all. He's a kafir. So every time you prostrate upon hearing a verse, it makes your personal jinn angry. Okay, that's the virtue of it. So now that brings us to the big question. Is it an obligation? Are we obligated to prostrate upon hearing or reciting one of those verses? In other words, if I am sitting at home reading my Quran and I get to a verse of prostration, do I have to prostrate? Or if I am listening to the Quran in my car, or I am at the mosque listening to the Quran and the Imam gets to a verse, do I have to prostrate? The answer is no. I want every one of you to understand that the prostration upon recital of the Quran is not obligatory. It is not obligatory. It is not obligatory. And this is based on the following evidence. Umar recited Surat An-Nahl one Friday. And when he came to the verse of prostration, he came down from the pulpit and he prostrated. And all the people who were there prostrated with him. The next Friday, when Umar was delivering a khutbah, he came to the same verse. And he said, wait a minute, O people, we have not been commanded to prostrate. Whoever does so has done a good deed, but there is no sin upon those of you who do not prostrate. So there's the evidence. So that when he said we have not been commanded, he's saying it is not an obligation. So we are not obligated to prostrate. So if I'm reading the Quran at home, I don't have to prostrate when I get to one of those verses. If I'm riding in my car, I don't have to prostrate if I hear that verse. If I'm at the mosque, I don't have to prostrate. But if I want to, I can. Also, in another hadith, it has been stated, Allah has not forced us to prostrate, but if one wishes to do so, he may do it. Also, we have another hadith that Zayd, who was one of the scribes of the Prophet, he said, I recited Surat An-Najm to the Prophet, and the Prophet did not prostrate during it. In fact, another companion records none of us did. Okay, so again, those are the authentic proofs, and there is no scholar on this planet who will refute any of these hadiths. They're all authentic. So thus, those people that tell you that you have to prostrate when you hear a verse of prostration, they don't know what they're talking about. It's not obligatory. And just to let everyone know, there are 15 verses of prostration in the Quran. There are 15 verses of prostration in the Quran. And I have them all listed here that you guys can review in your spare time. I don't want to read all of them, okay? But there's 15 verses. For example, one verse, Allah says, the interpretation, the meaning, lo, those who are with thy Lord are not too proud to do him service, but they praise him and prostrate to him. And when you read this verse, if you want to, You then raise your hands and say Allahu Akbar and prostrate. And then you say Allahu Akbar and stand back up. That's all. That's all you do. So these are the 15 verses of prostration. You can read them in your spare time later. And also that brings us to another question. Do I have to have wudu to prostrate? Do I have to be in a state of purity to prostrate? Listen to this reality, guys. There is no hadith on this planet concerning prostrations of recital that prove that you have to be in a state of purity to prostrate. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prostrated, there were many, many people with him. And he did not command them to make wudu before doing it. And there's no way that we can believe that all those women and men who were with them were in a state of purity. I'm sure there were many women who were on their periods. And I'm sure that there were men who didn't have wudu. Also, guys, when the Prophet prostrated, the Kafirs prostrated with him too. And we already know that the Kafirs don't get no reward, that the Kafirs are impure, and their wudu would not even be accepted. So anyone that tells you that you have to have wudu to prostrate, or you have to be in a state of purity to prostrate, they don't understand their religion. And also we have a hadith that Imam Bukhari relates from Ibn Umar, that Ibn Umar would prostrate even when he did not have wudu. Also, there is no hadith that states that your clothes or the place you are prostrating has to be pure either. But if you can prostrate, try to have your altar covered and face the Qibla if possible. Okay? You don't want to stand before Allah, with your nakedness out. Try to have some respect for Allah. And if you can face the Qibla, you don't have to, but try to. So again, you don't have to be in a state of purity to prostrate. And also, the prostrations are not even obligatory. What about this? We know that there is no tashahud or no specific supplication that needs to be said when prostrating. But what if I want to make dua? Can I? Well, if you want to make personal dua when prostrating upon recital, you can. For example, Aisha tells us that when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the prostration of Quran recital, he would say, I have prostrated my face to the one who created it and brought forth its hearing and seeing by his power and might. Blessed be Allah, who is the best of creators. So again, if you want to make personal supplication, you can, but it is not a requirement. Okay? So thus, guys, that's all there is to be said about the prostrations of Quran recital. Anything else that people tell you is based on their own opinion. It ain't based on the Quran or Sunnah. You don't have to be in a state of purity. And you're not even obligated to do it. Do you know how many of us can't prostrate because we got bad knees or bad hips? Subhanallah, do you think Allah would be so cruel as to impose a condition on us that we can't fulfill? Do you think Allah would be so cruel to tell you that you have to prostrate when you hear a verse and you're driving in a car? If you prostrate, what's going to happen? You're going to be dead. Subhanallah. So we'll stop right here for today. Tomorrow, Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah.